Hello everyone, welcome to WormTraq. WormTraq is an online tool to measure and identify your C. elegans. So this is the website. I'm on a local host right here, but the actual URL I'll post in the description, and it should be something, and of course you'll probably be on the site while watching this YouTube video, but it'll probably be something like wormtraq.herokuapp.com. So I'll go through all these various tabs and what the service offers to you, but let's go through the easiest one first, About. About is going to be your go-to reference if you're confused, have any questions, or you want to do anything really. About tells you about it. Methodology. I'll explain this probably in a little bit. Tutorial. I'm making that right now. And a little text tutorial and some open source stuff if you want to help me out. That'd be cool. Now we're going to move on to the first thing, which is picture. So picture. Essentially what this is going to happen, let me go back to about and explain the methodology. So you're going to take an image of C. elegans. In this case, it's kind of a lighter picture and one that have that the light settings do operate within my lab over there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to apply various I'm not going to do it. WormTraq is going to apply various photo processing filters, so stuff like contrast, vibrance, hue, and eventually noise removal. I'll get into all that good stuff. So we're going to eventually, apply some image filters and then grayscale the image. So we start off here, and then we're going to see very stark contrast between light and dark. And that's good because that allows us to easily identify any worms, any objects, what have you. Next, we're going to remove the noise. So what do I mean by noise? Noise is probably little dots you see in an image. So we see this little blotch right here. It looks like a little individual dot stuff, not a worm, more dots right here. But in our noise removal process, we'll kind of get rid of those, and that's kind of neat. So it won't be detected as worms, and hey, less false positives, everyone happy. And then finally, we'll run our little detection algorithm and identify our worms and even some false positives, but it's all good because you can use common sense and apply that and rule those false positives out. And that's how it's really going to work. I'm going to go into kind of the variables and all the setup right now. So picture. This is your fundamental WormTraq analysis. Let's go down to image file. Here's kind of instructions. It outlines everything. I'm explaining it right now, so I think we're good. I'll go to image.jpg. This is very similar to an image that you saw on the previous screen in the methodology section. Similar C. elegans. So detection threshold. Back in the methodology section, you saw the WormTraq kind of box out the worms and identify them. Basically, this is going to be your minimum, think of it like criteria for measuring and detecting the worms. So if you have a very high percentage, and this is all in terms of percentages of pixels of area, so the area of the object, the area of the worm. So if you have a very high percentage, and I think that'd be 1% or something, taking up 1% of the screen, then it would detect less objects, but you're risking losing potential smaller worms. And if you have a small number, something like 0.002, you're going to be detecting a lot of false positives, but at the same time, you're not risking not measuring any worms. So that's a trade-off you can consider and test around with it. So here are very processing settings. So there's 3 filters which are applied: contrast, hue, vibrance. And those are all applied to the images to basically separate the light from the dark in order for the WormTraq to properly analyze it and detect it. So play around with these numbers, and I'll explain how you could play along with it on the config. But basically, noise removal cycle. So I mentioned that. So every cycle essentially is going to remove some pixels from the image. So if you do noise removal a lot, you're going to have no noise, but you're risking kind of distorting and removing sections of the worm, because eventually, if this goes over and over and over, it's essentially like a washing, you're washing the image, if that's a great way to put it. Eventually, the actual worm object will be washed away, and you won't have the original object and kind of like a fragmented, disrupted looking kind of worm. And that may work for you, may not. You're going to test it out. So I believe we did upload something. And let's just test it out. And you'll see these default values may look a little weird, like Y65 for contrast. This just works for, what I use in the lab personally. And you could always change them. I'll explain how you can. And of course, here's our images. These are going to be two false positives, but we kind of see a worm right here, a worm right here, a little guy curled up right here, and a worm right here. Data table. So this is where you're going to be measuring stuff. And here's the width and height of the image in case you want to do some conversions. I doubt you want to do any reports in pixels. That'd be interesting. We're going to go to like worm number 3, for example. See a little curled up guy right here. I don't get the length of the worm. By length of the worm, I mean the midline. So like here's 4, like if pretend that little like paint like line drawer. Just like right through the midline, like something like that. That would be a midline measurement. I label it as length. Maybe I should change that. Area, basically the area within this green area, not the green region, my bad. Not the white box. That's not the area of our object. Green. And border box and width. No. Height and width. There we are. And you're going to have that guy right there in case you want to do any other measurements. I don't know. In case you want to. It's not too much. So what we're going to do now is let's move on to config. So it's the exact same as our picture. We're going to go to image. But now we have like freedom to play around with the numbers. So maybe I want to say I want Q to be 80. Oh man, that's a crazy Q. Try to stick within these regions. I honestly don't know what happened if you go above them. Don't try it. I'm going to say like 30 noise removal cycles. And let's just see what happens. Again, it's for the purpose of trying to figure stuff out. So did it break the system? Kind of, no. Basically, you can kind of see, again, the more noise removal we have, the more disrupted these will look. And it became a mega false positive right here. Crazy. Essentially, we have the same measurements right here, and we have our configuration variables that we used. So we're going to go back to config and do some more lovely stuff if we ever wanted to, but I think you get the idea. And again, noise removal removes noise. Hue, contrast, vibrance is able to do some pre-processing of the image. And we have a detection threshold, which is detecting the minimum criteria. So here's our next tool. So in case and I believe you might have seen that at the picture tab, in case you don't like what the results were and you're not getting anything good from my analysis, you're able to use a custom measuring right here. So essentially 2 things, measure and clear. This is primarily used for like the midline drawing, but you can use it for frankly whatever you want. I don't know, like something like that, right? So that'd be a sample, and then we can get the length. So maybe the image is too distorted for me. I could really draw a line through the C. elegans, and look at that, 377.4. And of course, gives us our dimensions to understand the relevance of that number. Maybe convert. So if you want, like, I don't know, WormTraq doesn't give me the width of the worm, well, there you go. 33.2 pixels. So you're able to kind of do some custom measurements, and that's pretty neat. And that should really supplement for any bad measuring. Area isn't supported yet. That will be supported in the future. So like if I draw something like that, that will be, and then give you an area. That will be supported in the future. So stay tuned for that. Let's move on to finally video. So video is basically going to take snapshots, if you will, of the worms in a specific time frame, and then do some image processing on there. And then we also have like a basic velocity function. I'll explain that right now. So upload video file, MP4. I think that's the only thing it takes. It is the only thing it takes, my bad. And of course, by the way, I just noticed this right here. If you want to contribute to the source code, or go back to the About page, that's at the footer right there. So you're going to first of all upload a video. And look at that, you can play back the video. I did get this video from YouTube. I will post a link to it in the description. This is not my own video, so that's a disclaimer. I will post that there. Time at video, so essentially this is going to be a process image at video timestamp. May take a while, so don't get impatient. But basically, we could say like, at 2 seconds, I want to process, and I think we're at 1 or whatever. I want to process this image and say, what's the area, the length of this guy? So you can test that out and figure out a specific snapshot. But what you're probably more interested in is going to be a basic velocity. Now, This is pretty basic as it gets. It's going to take essentially the positions of the worms in various time frames, and then say, okay, over some time period, really the definition of this velocity. And let me enter some time frame, and I'll explain to you some of the caveats and what goes on here. So we're going to enter this, and for this image, it's interesting. It's actually different because I got this off YouTube, so it's not going to be according to my previous settings. And so let me enter these, and let me hit process. I have a lovely loading thing, all nice and red, so you don't get impatient, and you're like, what's going on with my video? So that's a nice feature. As you can tell, it takes a while to do this video stuff. Be patient. And wow, can you imagine if it didn't work in a tutorial? Wouldn't that be unfortunate? Oh, there we are. So again, I may have gotten my configuration settings a little off here. I don't even know. Essentially, so WormTraq's kind of interesting in that it's going to assume that your images are consistent throughout. So like image 1 here is like image 1 here, and for the most part it is. I think image 1 should be matching up to image 2, but don't worry. Even if your image numbers don't match up, we have all of the displacements right here. So in image 1, the initial worm was number 1, so we can like have the position of the worm in pixels, of course. And in image 2, it looks like actually the second image is our second guy, so we have this guy. So we have our two values right here. We can use basic, physics, this change in velocity over change in time. And the change in time was 1 second because we did 1 to 2. And that's essentially what this is doing, but it's assuming that the image 1 here is the image 1 here, and sometimes it doesn't work. So we give you the positions right here to calculate that velocity. That's really it. And again, I didn't show you the other feature in the video section, but that takes your video or snapshot, does an image processing. Quick note about WormTraq. Whenever you upload media, so do some image processing, video processing, or what have you, WormTraq is running on its free service, so it will only store like 50 items. I do this intentionally to make sure I never go over my quota in terms of storage. So if you are going to say, okay, I'm gonna, if you look at the URLs, I believe it was localhost /picture/5 or whatever. Don't count on that URL being there sometime in the future, because once WormTraq reaches 50 items, all the media gets deleted, so you'll have to do it again. So to kind of save stuff, let me just show you that if you're not familiar with saving images on web browsers or what have you. Yada. Pictures are pretty quick. You could right click and just say save image as, and then take a screenshot of this data. I believe this will paste right into Excel too. And actually probably will add a download to Excel feature in the future. And that's essentially it. If you have any questions, do go here and email me and stuff. And of course, if you want to submit to the source code, that's awesome. But this has been an awesome time, and please let me know what you think if you have the time. Thank you very much.